Great to be back in Cardiff. I used to live here for 2 to 3 years when I was the deputy editor and acting editor of Wales on Sunday before I went off to Fleet Street. But so it's great to be back, and the place has changed. It's been about 15 years since I was living here. But my story really begins on 9/11, and of course I'm acutely aware that many of you would have been at junior school when the events of 9/11 happened, but I'd like to bet all of you can still remember that horrific day, where you were, what you were doing, the reaction of your family. I know that I was in the newsroom at the Sunday Express and I saw people gathered around the TV. And there's something compelling, isn't there, about breaking news, about a drama unfolding before your eyes. And there was this horrific image of one of the Twin Towers being hit. And as we all stood watching this scene, we were trying to speculate if the pilot had had a heart attack or what on earth had happened. And then when the second plane went in to the other tower, we knew instantly that this was no accident and America was under attack. A few days later, I ended up in Pakistan, along with about 3,000 other journalists from around the world. This is where the action was expected to happen. There was a war of words between Washington, London, Islamabad, and Afghanistan. And so all the journalists had assembled in Islamabad, waiting for this war of words to stop and an actual war to begin. I work for a Sunday newspaper, so my reaction to the news was slightly more analytical than a daily journalist. A daily journalist tends to react to the news that has happened that day. I was trying to second guess what people would want to read that weekend. And after the first week, I had found a guide and we decided that we would go into Afghanistan. John Simpson, the BBC's gargantuan chief correspondent, had put on a burqa and gone into the tribal areas undetected, and I thought, well, if John Simpson can do it, so can I. And so I went into Afghanistan wearing the all-enveloping burqa, and it is like putting on Harry Potter's magic cape. As soon as you put it on, nobody takes any notice of you. You become invisible. And so wearing this garment, myself and my two guides walked across from Pakistan's no man's land and into Afghanistan. They handed over their documents. I think I was a cross on somebody's paper. And the Taliban just didn't even give me a first look, never mind a second glance. You know, I was completely invisible, and I'm thinking, you know, this is such a magnificent garment for an investigative journalist to wear. And we got into the nearest city, Jalalabad, and I was told to sit on the edge of the marketplace while the men would do the shopping. And I thought, actually, this is quite liberating, isn't it? You know, trying to get men to do shopping in Britain is quite difficult at times. And I sat on the edge of the marketplace, sitting on my ankles, and I just watched, and all of the men were doing the trading. And as I say, I thought, you know, this is wonderful. Why can't we get the guys back home to do the shopping like this? But of course, under the ruling Taliban, unless you actually knew the shop trader, unless he was your husband, your uncle, your brother, a father, a known male relative, you couldn't possibly speak to him as a woman. So this is why all the trading was being done by men. I still think it's a great idea, it probably just needs some fine-tuning. So they got all the provisions and we went off to the village of one of my guides, a village called Karma, and there was great jolliment and merriment, and everybody was so happy when they saw one of their own return, especially because he was armed with loads of food. And suddenly all the happiness stopped because somebody had said, "Who's the woman in the burqa?" And they'd said, "She's a Western journalist." Only that day, the Taliban spiritual leader, Mullah Omar, had said, "Anyone helping a Westerner in this time of trouble will be executed." And so you can imagine how they felt having me in their midst. So I was led into this room, but there's something amazing about the Afghan people. They're extremely hospitable, and at the end of the day I was their guest, or they felt that I was their guest, and so they came in and started talking to me, and we communicated through one of my guides. And the first person who started talking to me was a 20-year-old girl, and I said, "You know, how are you feeling at the moment about this impending war?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm so frustrated. I was training to be a doctor. I should be qualified by now, but the medical school closed down and I was sent home." And I said, yes, I had heard that the Taliban didn't like women to be educated. And her brother said, "No, this is not the case. I was also training at the same medical school and it simply ran out of money. And we were all sent home and the school closed down. So now here we are rotting in our village when we should be equipped to help people in the hospitals." And I really felt their frustrations. And as we were talking, this other woman entered the room and she stood and she looked me up and down very slowly, and she had her hands on her hips and her toe was tapping. And of course, in international female language, we all know this is a sign of trouble. And she said to me, "Tell me, do you have any children?" So eager to please this woman, she was quite large and imposing, I said, "Yes, I have a daughter." She said, "Any other children?" And I said, no, just the one daughter." And she went, "Ha." She said, "You English and American women, you are all so pathetic. All you can ever manage is maybe 1 or 2 children. Me, I can have 15. And when you run out of your boy soldiers, I will be producing more." And I thought, wow, you know, we were told that the Afghan women were shy, oppressed, quiet creatures. This woman terrifies the life out of me, and then she's... And I said, "But surely you must be afraid of the Americans coming into your country." She said, "Dare one soldier come into my village, I myself will fight him off with those pots and pans over there." And I thought she probably would. And then she said, "But you know, we're very sorry about this mishap. We're very sorry." And she kept referring to 9/11 as a mishap, as an accident. And I had to stop the translator several times to say, "Is she talking about 9/11? And he said, "Yes." I said, "Well, it wasn't a mishap. It wasn't an accident." And then I realised under the Taliban there were no television sets or no visible means of watching television, especially in the outlying villages. And they didn't see the images that we saw. They didn't see those horrific images that we saw every hour on the hour every day for about 3 or 4 weeks of the towers being hit, of the towers imploding, of people throwing themselves off the 101st floor, people running for their lives, people screaming, the mass hysteria. They didn't see any of those images because there were no televisions in this village. And all the buildings were single story, so trying to convey the full horror of what we saw was very difficult. And I think that's why it was very much understated. They'd heard something bad had happened, but you know, she then turned around and said, "We are sorry. We're very sorry for the American people, but what has it got to do with us?" And I thought about it. Well, we knew by that time that there were 1920 hijackers, all of them from the Arab world, 15 from Saudi Arabia, certainly no Afghans, no Afghan hijackers. What indeed did it have to do with Afghanistan? And why would the richest country in the world want to drop $1 million bombs on $10 huts? It didn't really make sense, and I couldn't really explain that much to her. As the day went on, they were obviously increasingly nervous about my presence there, and so we left and headed back to the border, but it was sealed and we had to stay in Afghanistan that night. The next day the border was still sealed, nobody was getting in and out, and I said to my guides, if I don't get back and make a connection with my news desk, the alarm will go up and they'll know something's happened. So one of my guides said, well, let's go through the smuggling route. And this sounded very exciting. I thought it will get me more to write about. People will think I'm incredibly brave, charging through this smuggling route, ducking and diving from tree to tree down these narrow mountain passes. And so I said, yes, let's do that. Let's go through this smuggling route. And so I followed them. But far from being in a barren wasteland with high cliffs and narrow mountain passes, we were in open countryside, and it was like Piccadilly Circus. There were hundreds of families from Afghanistan with all their goods in hand carts, hauling them over towards Pakistan. And from Pakistan, there were lots of young men coming over saying that they wanted to fight the great Satan, and they wanted to join the Taliban, and so they were coming over. So there was quite a mix, quite a coming and going. There were donkey traders, there were camel traders. I didn't realize camels were in Afghanistan. There were tea and coffee on sale. It was really extremely busy in this smuggling route. And as we made our way towards the Pakistan border, I said, you know, I'm so tired, and these Afghan shoes you've given me, they're a size short, and they're cutting into my feet, and my feet are blistered. And so one of my guides said, well, can you ride a donkey? And he took me to this string of motley looking donkeys, and he said, do you think you could manage to ride one of these? And I sneered and looked at these creatures, and I said, I ride horses, I go galloping, trotting, jumping over fences. Look at these, they're half the size and the same shape. I said, of course I can ride a donkey. So we did a deal, and I got on this donkey, and it just bolted. And it's nothing like a horse at all.